This is the I Read Comic Books podcast, the very best podcast for regular comic book fans. I am your host, Mike Rapin, and joining me this week, a pair of highly detailed costume villains straight out of an episode of Power Rangers. This week, I am joined by Brian Murray.
Make my monsters grow.
Thank you. And our very special guest for this episode, Claire Connelly.
It's me.
Thank you both for joining me this week. Very excited to talk to you about comic books as we do. Very excited to be back on the show. It's been like a month and a half since I've recorded an episode of I Read Comic Books, and boy, does it feel weird. But before I get into my own existential crises, I guess, Claire, you are our special guest this week. Could you tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, my name's Claire. My last name is Connelly. I'm an artist and illustrator and tattoo artist. But my main, I guess, notoriety would be for doing comics and mini comics and just drawing a lot out of a compulsive need. But yeah, I just make comics and now I tattoo as well. So just always drawing.
Yeah, well, Claire, I am a weirdo, and I've been following your work for a very long time, since I started it way back at Comixology, way back in 2015. And since then, you have put tattoos on my body. So, like, in a weird way, we are connected, and that's just how the universe brought us together. But you also did a page in the IRCB zine, Totally Not a Cult, which featured Bobby Hill. It's fantastic for those of you out there who haven't seen it. Our friend Nick, who's a regular on the show, one of the tapes that we offered for the Kickstarter, his tape was your cover. So it's printed on a little tape cassette wrapper, and it's being mailed out to him as we speak right now. It's a fantastic page. I think everybody here will agree that we love it.
Oh, awesome. That makes me so excited that it actually got turned into like a VHS.
Yeah.
I love things, so it's like to have tangible things that you can hold nowadays. It's just like,
yeah,
physical media, man.
I'll send you a photo of what it looks like because I just had to go print it off at Staples because it's like the only place I could find where somebody would just print randomly onto like pieces of specifically cut paper. But it looks fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I'll send you a photo of it. It's really nice.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So you couldn't print it and then cut it out. You had to.
Okay. We're going to do this right now. All right. So here's the thing about these tapes. So I bought them from this Canadian website, and they're the only place that would sell me 47-minute on both side tapes. So it's like 94 minutes total, right? Tapes. Because some of our episodes are like an hour and a half. And so like I had to get tapes that would allow me to do that. As part of buying from them, they also sold me special like stickers to put on the tapes that you could write on, as well as the J jackets that would go inside the tape cassettes that the tape come in, because you have to get, I mean, I could have done this myself, but they sell these specific like laser print friendly pieces of paper with specific bend lines so that it fits right inside of the tape cassette like holder. It looks really nice, Brian. Okay, just leave me alone. Okay,
All right.
Making things is hard.
Yeah, I'm not really a maker, Brian. Like Claire knows this, it's probably way better than I do. It's hard to make stuff,
Yeah.
Okay?
It's like a lot of math. Like you're just like, oh yeah, and then you realize you drew your entire book at the wrong ratio, and you're just like, well, too late now.
See, and this is the thing I learned as we were making this zine is that like I think at one point I emailed you and I was just like, hey, could you like make this the highest DPI ever possible? And you sent me a humongous file, which thank you very much. Everybody else did too. But I realized that the dimensions I gave everybody were slightly off, and so we had to go with a different printer in order to make sure that we could print these things right. Some of these pages we could not get them to fit in the pages regardless, and so you'll notice there's a couple of them with black borders, but like nonetheless, making stuff is very hard. I really appreciate that you said that. My first foray was tough. Okay, it was so tough.
Yeah, there's always a lot of like production issues when it comes to anything. Even the best planned production, something's gonna get messed up.
Oh sure. Which I'm very curious to ask you about your comics and what you're making. But we have to do something that we do on every episode of this show. I have two legally mandated questions that I have to ask, and that is, how have you been? How have comic books been? Claire, I'm curious to know, what have you been reading? What have you been up to?
Well, I literally just finished reading ULTRAMEGA, which is one of my favorites.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it with issue 9. I believe that's the end of the series. Don't quote me though.
I'm behind, so I don't know, you know more than me.
Yeah, so it's just one of my favorites because it's basically Ultraman meets Jack Kirby with like Mobius, and it's just everything that I like to think about the holy trinity of stuff that I like, and it's
Hmm.
monsters, robots, and little guys, and that's this book.
Awesome. Awesome. This is the James Heron book, if I'm not mistaken. Is that who did this book? Oh man, it looks so good.
Yeah, and
For
there's an
those of you who are
oversized.
just listening, you're missing out. We're live on Twitch. Claire's showing off the wonderful cover of this book. Sorry.
No, you're good. So yeah, just been I fell behind, so I just catched up with the last like three issues, or actually two, because I'm missing one, which I assume is somewhere in my house in a pile underneath something else.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I got like 3 of those piles.
Yeah, just a few good death piles. So I was just catching up with that, and I just really like it because it's like it's got action, humor, great monster designs. Um, it kind of touches the reality of like what it means to be a hero but still be a person. How horrifying it would be if these monsters were actually attacking us, and like actually like how the planet would probably kind of crumble and die, which feels like a not as strong of a parallel timeline as the timeline we are currently in. So
Yeah, we're doing great here.
Well, I'm like I said, I'm behind on that. I think I read the first run of Ultra Mega that came out. Like, wasn't there a previous run before the current run? I think I read most of that, and I read the first issue of this new one. So maybe I read the whole first run. Either way, beautiful looking book. Like the art in that book is consistently like blows me away. So I'm glad that other people are reading it. I know there's some folks on our Discord that really celebrate it. But thank you for reminding me. I'll add it to my forever. I'll bring it higher up on my forever to read pile. How about that?
oh, I think the trade is coming out this month in August,
Okay.
so you can
Okay.
get the
Cool.
second trade. But I believe there was a few-year hiatus between the first trade and then the current trade. So I think it was like it may have been like a 2 or 3 year hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's why maybe a few people kind of fell off uh, the series. But it's one of my favorites as a person who thoroughly enjoys anything monster, especially things that are kaiju related, which has been
Yeah.
a bulk of kind of like most of the media that I consume nowadays.
Gotcha. Yeah. If I remember correctly, your like your tattoo station. I don't know what you call the place where you do tattoos, but like there are a lot of like kaiju guys around.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very very cool stuff. Brian, what about you? Let's move over to you. How have you been? How have comic books been?
Yeah, I've been good. Your West Michigan weather watch, it's hot as balls out here. And I had to turn my AC off so that it wouldn't be on for this recording. So you've got like another 60 minutes or so before I start to actively melt.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll try to get this rolling. I've been reading the webtoon adaptation of the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series.
Okay.
If you've been on TikTok in any capacity in the last couple of months, you've probably heard of this series. It is what's called a lit RPG, which basically means it's a book that has its own like RPG game system that the characters are in some capacity aware of and playing by. It's a whole genre. I have not read anything else in the genre, so I can't speak to its general quality. But this book series, at least, is pretty good. Um, the credits on Webtoon are always a hot mess, so I'm gonna do my best to give credit where it's due. The original work is by the author Matt Dinneman. This adaptation is by someone named Tevaga, and I'm pretty sure the publisher is called Athon, and the art studio is Laurel Pursuit.
Okay.
But again, that's just kind of the best I could do with what Webtoon gave me. The adaptation has been interesting because just like in any adaptation, you have your own idea of what the characters and everything look like, and this one definitely threw me for a loop because the main character looks very much like a skinny anime boy. And
Okay.
I love a skinny anime boy. Don't get me wrong.
Sure. Sure.
But this guy's supposed to be like a Coast Guard vet and kind of like a brawler type guy. And so the skinny anime boy does not really fit my expectations. This is of course Carl, our dungeon crawler main character. He and his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, who is a like one of those smush faced Persian cats. They do a killer job with that cat in the comic. She looks so funny. But they survive an alien conquest of Earth and basically enter into an intergalactic game show to try and mostly to try and survive. But should they win, they will become the new regents of Earth.
Okay.
So it's a whole lot to try and dig into. There's 7 books out right now, so I'm sure I could ramble on for hours. But so far, there's only 6 free issues out on Webtoon.
Okay.
There's 10 if you feel like digging into the Webtoon coins system. But yeah, it's pretty good so far. If you're a fan of the book series, I definitely recommend checking it out. And even if you're not, if it sounds interesting, it's only 6 issues. They've got music set to it. It's very cool. I'd say give it a shot.
This series is like exploding, right? Like you're like maybe the 4th or 5th person to talk about this to me in some capacity over the last 2 or 3 weeks. There's folks on like Pokemon discords that I'm a part of that are into this. Like this is breaching into multiple like nerd channels. This isn't like specifically like tabletop RPG fans or like lit RPG fans. I don't even know if that's like a sub-genre niche, but like people that read a lot of books, I guess. I don't know, whatever you call those types of nerds. Like this seems to be pervasive. I'm very scared because it sounds like I feel like it's inevitable that I read this in some capacity, and I'm worried that it's built up too much, even though everyone tells me it's very mid, but I'm having fun.
I was like resistant to it for the longest time just because it seemed like a book talk fad.
Right.
It wasn't until our friend Ben told me that he had been reading them, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll give it a shot. And then I listened to all 7 audiobooks in like 6 weeks. So
oh my
gosh, Brian. That's great.
I like Danny also work from home, so I just have audiobooks playing while I'm doing my silly little QA job.
I see. Well, I feel like I'm not going to put this on my TBR because I feel like it will get put onto my TBR in some other capacity. Like unintentionally, I will open up my Kindle and somehow this book will be the next thing that I read. I think that's what's going to happen. But
yeah, I mean, it'll get to you in time. It did me. So
right. Well, thanks for the threat. Let me talk about what I've been up to. It's been a very busy July. We took the entire month off. I want to shout out Zach and Danny and Kate for last week's episode. It was great. Thank you for picking up the reins while I was out at Gen Con being an ultra nerd playing Magic the Gathering and some tabletop RPGs with friends. And driving across the country. I don't know if you guys know, but Pennsylvania is the biggest state. I don't care what anyone says. It's the biggest state. Drove across that, but I did manage to read some comics. Man, oh man, I read a bunch. I'm gonna just shout out a couple really quick. I read Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma. I got caught up with through issue 4. I think the 5th issue is out, and boy oh boy, Ram V, Butch Guice, or Juice, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and Anand RK are doing some of the coolest comics that DC possibly could do with this series. All I want to say is, Ram V, could you please stop fucking with my head? Because what's your problem? Raging Clouds by Yudori from Fantagraphics is a really beautiful book that is in this huge oversized hardcover almost. And it's just a really strange story that I think I missed something about this woman who lives in like old Dutch times and her husband's garbage and she wants to fly. It's a great book, beautifully drawn from beginning to end. Highly recommend it if you're looking for something like offbeat. I think you'll have a good time with it. And Assorted Crisis Events number 5 by Dennis Camp, Eric Zawadsky, and Jordi Belair. If you read this, you will be hurt. So I want to warn anyone out there. Do not read Assorted Crisis Events, period, from the beginning at all, unless you're looking to be knowingly hurt by this book. I cried at the end of issue 5. Issue 2 might be the most harrowing issue of a comic that doesn't involve like extreme bodily mutilation and blah, blah, blah that I've read in a minute. This is the heaviest realist comic on the stands right now. I don't know how Dennis Camp keeps getting away with it, but every month I'm left hurt, broken, and I want more. So that's all I can say about that. But the book I really want to talk about here is Second Shift. This is by Kit Anderson. It's a very subtle, trippy story about a realistically sad future where algorithms and AI coax people to work by giving them, quote, everything they want in the far reaches of outer space. I think this is maybe not the best read in 2025. It's just not a book that made you feel good. But I think Kit Anderson worked on this book amidst 2023, 2024, if not earlier than that, when things were pretty bad. And I think they were approaching this story about these AIs and algorithms from a very like, how do I talk about this without just saying this all fucking sucks? So I appreciate the dark tone of the book. But like, man, oh man, I did not feel good after having read it. I think the mind bendingness of the book that it gets into in the second half of it, like, is so smart, super well done. It takes a twist that I did not see coming. Even though if you go back and read the first few pages, you're kind of like slap your head like, duh, of course, it was always meant to be this. And I really appreciate that. So if you're looking for something that has like a sci-fi vibe where they take the world that we live in today and add like 130 years to it without making anything better, read Second Shift. If you're not looking for that, I don't recommend this, but it's a beautiful book. Anderson's artwork is very chunky, which at times like doesn't mesh super well with the sci-fi vibe, but I think it overall works really, really well, especially with that second half twist that I was talking about. It's weird to say that there's going to be a twist because maybe you feel like, oh, I'm going to be looking for the twist the entire time. You won't find it. I guarantee it. But I think that the blockiness and like the strangeness of like the high sci-fi concepts with like this low fidelity, like realism that the book gives off super works with their art styles. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's just going to make you feel kind of weird, Second Shift by Kit Anderson is great from Avery Hill Press. Avery Hill Press constantly putting out banger comics over and over and over, so I can't shout out them enough. But this one was good, and I was glad to take a look at it because I just got the Kickstarter copy in the mail. So yeah, that's me.
You mean you got a Kickstarter book and actually read it?
I know. I'm so proud of myself. Listen, I started to actually like take the copies that I get and then download them immediately to my iPad. And I'm like, if I do that, then it'll be right in front of me, right? But I've got like 400 books or something like that on my iPad, so maybe that doesn't work like that. Yeah. Anyways, let's move on though. Let's talk about comics on the top of our pile, comics that are new or old or something you're just looking to get off your shelf. I want to shout out some of the folks hanging out with us live here on Discord and Twitch today. CK is going to be reading Into the Unbeing Part 1. I cannot wait to read both parts of this series. It's so gross. It looks so fantastic. Zach Thompson, just disgusting mind on that man. Walker is going to be reading Superman Secret Identity, and Danny is going to be reading Superman The Kryptonite Spectrum #1, which is the book coming out from the team behind Ice Cream Man. And I can't believe Martin Morazzo is going to be fucking drawing Superman. It's so cool. I'm so hyped around that. So anyways, let's Brian, what is on the top of your pile this week before I freak out any more about comics?
Would it shock you if I picked a Star Wars book?
You? Really? Interesting.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, I saw on Hoopla that there is a Darth Maul Black, White, and Red anthology. And I loved the Darth Vader Black, White, and Red anthology. Yeah. So I'm very excited for this one. Unfortunately, because it's an anthology, that also means I'm going to be rattling off credits for a minute here. Okay. So bear with me. There's 4 stories. The first one is Ghost Ship, written by Benjamin Percy, with lines by Stefano Raffaelli and colors by Raul Angulo. The Remainders, written by Mark Russell, with letters and colors by Carlos Nieto. The Mission, written by Erica Schultz, with lines by Leonard Kirk and colors by Andres Mosa. And finally, Peace and Quiet, which has its own laundry list, written by Greg Pak, with pencils by Luca Pizzari and Will Sliney, inks by Luca Pizzari, Will Sliney, Jay Lyston, and Robert Pogge, and colors by Andre Mosa. And we have Joe Caramagna on letters for the whole shebang.
That's quite a list, Brian.
Yeah. And a good mix of familiar names that I know I can trust and unfamiliar names that I'm looking forward to checking out.
So is this is just an anthology book? It's all black, white, and red. I mean, was the black, white, and red for Darth Vader, was it like hyper violent? Is there something that that they're doing to these books that are making them like special, or is it just like, here's an anthology on this color theme, we're not doing anything different than usual?
With the Vader book, the red came from his lightsaber, and so it was like the lightsaber itself, and then like the lights that it casts on things are lit up red.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
with Maul, I imagine it's gonna be different because his whole color scheme is red and black.
Right,
But I'm
right.
sure that the red lightsaber light will also play a big part here.
Right. I mean, it's a very cool concept for an anthology. Claire, have you read any of these? I saw you nodding along like you were into this.
No, I mean, I haven't read any of them. I'm just happy that anthologies are still a thing. Because I feel like anthologies go through a lot of peaks and valleys, as far as like publishers actually doing them. So like, again, I'm not a huge Star Wars reader, but just knowing that anthologies are kind of back into the publishing, like zeitgeist, always makes me excited, and I love a theme. Like I loved when DC did those like what was it, like CMYK ones where it'd be like, oh, one's in cyan, one's in magenta. I love like I'm a sucker for like good art direction and a theme.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think with, was it Oni Press got the rights to, like, all of the old, like, Cruel Universe and, like, old EC comic stuff? Like, I think those were doing, like, pretty good. I know that, like, the multiple comic book shops that I went to were carrying those books. Plus, Malachi Ward was doing a lot of art for those. So, like, who doesn't want to buy a Malachi Ward cover comic? But nonetheless, yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, love a good anthology that's not just coming from Kickstarter. Like, the fact that publishers are getting on board for this is very exciting. I think books like Ice Cream Man and Assorted Crisis Events, being like one stop shop kind of stories each issue, also kind of helps to say like, we can do these long term. They can be really, really exciting. So yeah, Brian, you'll have to let us know how this is, because if the other ones were good, maybe it's time for me to go back and actually read Star Wars comics for a change. I don't know.
Maybe this will be what finally gets me and Kara to actually talk about doing another season of I Read Star Wars comic books.
That could be interesting. That could be interesting. But Claire, let me kick it over to you. What are you reading next? What's on the top of your pile?
I'm gonna read next would be Rat City by Erica Schultz, Z. Carlos, and then I believe the colorist is Ray David Ramos. I'm sure I butchered everyone's names.
Sure.
But it's basically just Spawn, kind of in like a cyberpunk universe.
Sold.
And I think
Cool.
one thing with Spawn, I think, you know, it's, I always liked his design, but maybe his narrative was never really strong. So to me, this gives like Spawn, like, he's a really cool and interesting looking character, but like putting him in the future, I think is a good way of kind of like reestablishing the character and the lore. And I'm just really excited because I've read an ungodly amount of Spawn comics when I was younger, so it's kind of nice to get back to Spawn without having to read through the hundreds of comics. Because I think it's like over 300, and that to me feels like you're like gonna read One Piece. Like, I'm too intimidated. So something like this, especially, I love me some Erica Schultz. So I'm really excited to see her take on Spawn, because I really like how down to earth a lot of her characters are.
Yeah. I'm looking at the cover for this. It's actually Spawn. Okay, that's super cool. I thought that, like,
they're not shying away from it. I'm glad they're embracing that. It's like, no, like, it's still Spawn, for better or worse, depending on everyone's opinion. But they're not shying away from that, and I think that's super cool. Like, I remember when Imagery did like Prophet and stuff like that. I kind of like when you embrace sometimes maybe the silliness or the things that don't necessarily mesh with those kind of comics when they came out in the 90s, and just kind of embrace them and reinvent them for like contemporary comics.
Yeah, no, that's great.
The only thing I can picture when I think of Spawn is John Leguizamo in the movie.
Right.
Well, see, I love schlock and stuff like that, so like I love all that like Guyver and Spawn movies and all that kind of stuff. So like, it's just culture vomit, and I'm here.
That's great. Well, yeah, I'm looking at this now and I'm seeing that it's a 6-issue miniseries, and that might also be my like, hey, it's time to check out Spawn as well. That's very exciting because nothing better than an Image miniseries, in my opinion.
I think that's one thing that Image like super super solid is like they're almost like I would say like follow kind of like book publishing where they're like, oh yeah, like miniseries hit, like they're super obtainable, super easy for the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can get a trade, and you're like, it's also just a great gift. You're like, okay, here's a whole series, 6 issues.
Right. I
It's
mean,
like
this is
Danny said that anthologies are the TikTok of books, and as much as that like troubles me on an existential level, it is accurate.
yeah.
Like it's what my attention span is built for these days.
Right. I mean, it's funny. The miniseries idea that you're just talking about, Claire, like that is exactly why I'm reading more DC comics than I'm reading Marvel, because they keep putting out all these like 5-6 issue miniseries. Like I don't have to work too hard to like get into these books, right? Like this new Ice Cream Man Team Spider or Superman book is like a 5-issue miniseries, right? The Dennis Camp Absolute Martian Manhunter is 12 issues. I'm all in. That's all that I need, right? I realize saying all in is actually like a triggering thing for some Marvel fans, but like nonetheless, I'm totally on board to read a miniseries way more than I am like 600 issues of Superman, or like the new ongoing that's going to get canceled in 30 issues and then the new creative team is going to come on. So totally feel you on that.
I don't want to invoke the specter of One Piece again here, Mike, but weren't you the one who was telling me I should read that?
No. I realized in hindsight that the only reason I was able to read that is because we were in lockdown for a year and a half. I think that no person would actually be able to sit down and read like 30 to 40 chapters a day and still keep their sanity with a day job that they had to travel to and all that other stuff. So I really want more people to read One Piece, but I think we need to find a One Piece Kai that everybody can read or watch that is just like a much more just condensed version that gets you the same stuff. But that's a whole other project. Let me talk about what I'm going to be reading very soon. I got an email last week from our good friends over at IDW/Top Shelf. They sent over this book called Ionheart. This is by Lucas Kummer from Top Shelf. The synopsis and just the art style of this book looks really, really cool. But the description they gave us is: pursued by a terrifying demon, a young knight flees across the radioactive ruins of a fairy tale land. His only weapon is the same cursed power that once destroyed this world, what some would call magic and others would call technology. As his relentless enemy draws closer, the knight's terrible secrets begin to unfold. How many lives has he lived? Is this the past, the present, or the future? Is he destined to bring love or unimaginable destruction? If he fails, will humanity ever get another chance? Like, come on. This is like a 160-page original graphic novel about like huge concepts that mess with your fucking brain. I'm in. This is all that I want from comics all the time. So I'm very excited. This is like this person's first American graphic novel. They're from Austria or Germany. I guess Austrian German is their description, so Austria probably. But yeah, looks great. Looks really fun in terms of the art looks fantastic. But yeah, so I'm going to check that out because IDW sent it over to us, and I love that for us. But that's on the top of my shelf, or top of my pile, I guess.
Yeah, it reminds me of the. Is this supposed to be like a real world that becomes fantasy in the wake of the apocalypse, or is this like a fantasy world from Jump?
I think it's a fantasy world from the jump. At least the art kind of seems a little bit too fantastical for it to be like based in reality. So I think there was a world, and now there is this world that this guy lives in, and they are not supposed to be our world, right?
Okay, because what that made me think of when you're talking about it was the Shannara Chronicles.
Okay.
Which is like a fantasy story set in the rubble of Earth.
Interesting. Okay, I'm seeing a TV series that had 2 seasons.
Yeah, it was okay.
Okay, cool. The first thing that Google gives me is a thread from Reddit from 2020. Is the Shannara Chronicles any good? And their questioning was it has an absolutely horrible series of advertisements. So I don't know. Yeah, interesting. No, I don't think this is anything related to that. I think this is just like a cool little old GN. I think, like I said, it's 160 pages. I don't think we have time to get into the mind-bending like reality of how did Earth today become this
Yeah.
fantastical world of the maybe future, maybe past. But yeah, either way, I'll let you guys know. I'm excited for it, and it's coming out I think in the middle of August. So if you haven't, if you're on the lookout for something like this, it'll be on the shelves August 19th, if I'm not mistaken. But anyways, let's move on. I guess we could be done talking about comic books temporarily. Instead, I have some questions for our good friend Claire here, who is our special guest. I'm very curious because, like I said, I've been following your work for a really long time. How did you get into making comics? How did that start? How did you go from like a person with a pen in their hand to like now I'm putting out mini comics and stuff?
One of my professors when I went to college, he really wanted someone to make comics, like out of like the peer kind of like group I was in, and I guess I was
Okay.
chosen. And he was like, "Oh, you should really make comics." And I read comics and stuff, but the comics I was always reading didn't look like the way I drew. So I was like, "Oh no, I can't make comics. I don't draw like that. I don't draw these like very detailed, kind of like super heroic looking people. All my people look more abstracted, more cartoony." Um, so he started bringing in like top shelf books and drawn and quarterly books, being like, "Oh no, no, there's this like whole other world of comics that like people are just like making stuff and like zines." So like underneath his guidance, he kind of like showed me all this stuff, and I was like, "Oh shit, I could totally do that."
Yeah.
So I just started making a mini comic every week for like a year or two to like teach myself how to do it.
Whoa. Okay. And like that, are you talking like 4 pages or something, or like how? I guess what's it look like for you to make like a mini comic every week?
It started with because I didn't really know how comics really functioned by doing 3 pages, where one page was the beginning, one page was the middle, and the last page was the end. So I did that like
Nice.
a dozen times, and then I bumped it up to like 8 pages, and then just started like increasing the page amounts so I could learn all my mistakes on these smaller projects instead of trying to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna write my magnum opus. I'm gonna like write something as large as like Lord of the Rings." Um,
Right.
so it was kind of like a series of exercises, and then I could also learn how to like make like physically make the comic by like
Mm-hmm.
messing up a lot of really small projects. So ideally, once I moved on to a larger project, I wouldn't mess it
Smart.
up.
Smart.
So you start with these mini comics, and then I'm assuming you either finish college or you finish like some portion of time, and then you go on to like continue to make comics. I guess like what does it look like to go from making these mini comics to like making the stuff that we would have seen in, I don't know, 2015? I guess when I first saw your work. How about that?
Yeah, I guess like my first like full-fledged graphic novel was my senior thesis for college, and my professor at the time was like, "Oh, you need to do at least 100 pages." And I was like, "Oh, that's a lot." Especially because the other people were making comics only had to do 20 pages, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Rude.
He was like, "No, no, no, but you actually know what you're doing, so you need to do more." And I was like, "All right, well, cool." So it ended up being like 150 pages, which was like my first full-fledged graphic novel, which was called Here, a Sci-Fi Epic. Um, so I had to like draw it all, write it all. I wasn't allowed to have anyone help me, like physically make the book, so I had to do everything myself. You weren't allowed to
Whoa.
get outside help other than like someone could like proofread it and I could get feedback from people, but they couldn't help me ink it, scan it, print it, or anything. Um, so they had to have the physical book in their hands when I handed my thesis in. I couldn't just hand in the art.
So wait, so you had to bind it and everything, or I guess like what did that go from
I
like
paid
from
someone
like
to
the
bind
pages
it
to what?
for me, but I
Okay.
had to like send it to them and allow the production time. So like the production time's like a month and a half.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I had like I think it was like less than 6 months to write and have it ready for print to a printing company. Um,
Yowza.
yes,
Yeesh.
that was when I was like in my early 20s, so it wasn't like
Uh-huh.
I had a lot more energy. Because
I'll say that
now
didn't
I'm in
scare
my
you
mid
off.
30s.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was like the first time where I was like, oh shit, like I'm really gonna do this, and like people believe in me, and stuff like that. So uh, after that, I was like, oh no, I can do this. So I just didn't stop doing it.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so for almost like I'd probably say like several years. Every year I was doing one graphic novel, which would be like at least 100 pages, and then one anthology by myself.
Cripes. That's a lot of pages just like in general.
Yeah,
Like
I love
for one
paper.
person to do, like exactly, exactly. Which is like, I mean, still that 100 pages. That's insane. That's insane. Were these primarily like black and white? Were you doing full color? I guess. Like, what's the process look like for something like that?
Most of them were probably black and white, but then probably after a few years I started exploring color a little bit more, but I didn't really do digital coloring. I did everything by hand, so I was hand watercoloring uh
Hell yeah.
everything, and I don't have anything against digital art by any means, but I just really enjoy the act of making stuff like tactilely with my hands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like even now I'll use like the computer do zip tone because it's really expensive to buy the zip tone pages and do it by hand now. Um, yeah,
Interesting.
they're really hard to get here in the US. You have to like import them, and to do 100-page book with zip tone would cost me a lot of money. So I do that stuff digitally. Um, and I try to do use color sparingly because color printing's really expensive in a post-pandemic world.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be more thoughtful when it comes to production, like what can I feasibly get done, what can I feasibly afford. I also try to do everything in the US. So like the people who print my
Yeah.
books are here in the US. So that means I can't necessarily do hardcover books because all that kind of stuff gets generally done overseas. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. So it's a lot of like logistics, honestly, doing comics. And for me, because I generally do most of it myself, it's like if
Mm-hmm.
I take a day off, it's like the entire team took a day off.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's kind of like that, kind of like balancing act. So like now I produce a lot less comics because I'm a little bit older, but throughout my entire 20s, I was generally doing a graphic novel and an anthology every year, and I have like probably like 4 or 5 graphic novels, like full length, that are just sitting on my computer that like no one's ever read.
So what I'm hearing is 2026, or what am I saying? What are we doing here?
Uh, yeah, I think definitely one of them I'm definitely gonna publish. It's called Captain Lost, and it's a series of like vignettes with a character that I definitely want to publish. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's just that it's like I think it's probably a few hundred pages, and it's just really gonna be not a fun time to scan them all into the
I see. Right, right, right.
computer.
Oh, right. The manual process of physically scanning them in is also part of the arduous process of making
Yes.
this book happen. Yeah, I gotcha. But I think I've seen some of your mini comics. I think like at one when I got my first tattoo from you, you let me take home one of your Apocalypse 4
Hmm.
book comics, which is this huge oversized thing that's like right there. I should go grab. I guess if you're not working on big graphic novels, like what are you doing when it comes to like smaller books, like Apocalypse 4 and stuff like that? What's your inspiration behind those types of books?
Uh, it's usually just like the stuff I genuinely enjoy.
Hmm.
So, which is like monsters, robots, and little guys.
Right,
Um,
right.
occasionally I'll do kind of like slice of life or autobiographical stuff, but I generally don't because I don't find myself to be that particularly interesting. Um,
Okay.
although occasionally I will. I have a few little autobio comics, and it's mainly just about like, uh, feeling like you're an NPC sometimes, like working retail or something.
Sure.
But I'd rather write about like I love like Japanese uh like Godzilla and monsters and all that kind of stuff. So Apocalypse 4, I was like, I was trying to sit down and actually write something that would be commercially viable. I was like, all right,
Hmm.
I'm gonna sit down and try to make something commercially viable so I can live off the comics. And then by the end, I was like, this is not commercially viable. What the hell was I thinking? I'm like, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, if they were like Ultraman characters,
Right,
and
right.
they're fighting biblically accurate angels and kaiju and kaijin, and at the end they're gonna like fight God, and I was like, this is not commercially viable. But I still drew the first issue, and I have like 2 more issues planned. I just have to draw them.
I mean, I read it. I thought it was really fun. Biblically accurate angels is terrifying on paper. But I'm a big fan of your work. As I've said, I can't stop being a fanboy here. I'm very, very sorry. But like, the thing I think that I really like about your work in general is like you use a lot of really thick, heavy line work. Like there's just a lot of like heavy blacks, and I think that that's really cool. I guess what drove you towards like getting into that type of style of artwork, I guess. Like what makes you want to put so much black on the page?
Um, One, because it's really efficient when you're drawing.
Sure, okay.
Like, I think that's one thing when it comes to comics, is you have to figure out a style that gives you what you're looking for artistically, but it also is incredibly efficient.
Yeah.
Because you can't sit there and be like, stare out the window and longingly look for inspiration. It's a commercial art form, so you have to figure out, how can I get this story across? And I think black is just super dramatic. Like, if you watch the first Nosferatu, it's so dramatic because there's just these big splotches of black, and then you see a figure emerge. Um, so I guess I'm just like a huge drama queen. So I just love to put like a lot of black on the page, and I think it's really striking. Like, if someone can look over your shoulder and still figure out what you're reading, and they could be like, what are you reading? 'Cause that's how I discovered Hellboy. I just looked over, and I could like see the story from across the room,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, like that's really striking. That's really an effective use of like space time, and just like making something that's super graphic.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned Hellboy because, like, I think Mike Mignola is maybe one of the best masters of like the use of shadow work and stuff in his books. Like the way he plays with like dark colors, where you're like, even the smallest panel that has like a specific outline, it's all black, and you just see a little bit of red. You're like, oh, I know that's Hellboy, and I know that's Hellboy from 10,000 miles away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely can see that. Brian, I need to shut up. Do you have any questions for Claire before I just keep going through the list of things that I've got here?
Yeah, I was curious how you got into tattooing.
It's because I'm very tattooed. Uh,
Oh,
um, so I'm a super tattooed person. So I have like a sleeve, and my legs are pretty covered. But the legs are a pretty new thing because now I'm tattooing, so it's really efficient to get tattooed when you're in a tattoo shop all the time.
I see.
But I've always been an artist, and always drew, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should tattoo," and I'm always like, "Don't tell me what to do." Um, so then one of my other comic book artist friends was like, "Hey, I'm getting into tattooing. I think this is something you should like consider." So I kind of sat on it, and I was like, I can do this. I think I have enough of a false sense of confidence that I could get into tattooing. So I went the more traditional approach, where I got an apprenticeship, and I worked underneath my mentors, Lou Morrig and Ryan Sliegel, and they really taught me how to tattoo properly, safely, and things like that. And it's also just another way of using my skills as an artist, and it's like collaborating in a different way, because I'm collaborating with my client versus maybe collaborating with my readers or a writer.
Hell yeah. I guess on that note, I mean, like you, I was gonna ask a question about like how you draw skulls, but I don't know if that's necessarily like a good thing to ask because it's very interesting. I've seen like a lot of the flash work that you do. You did like a whole page of skulls that are just absolutely demolished. I guess what drives you to like build specific flash pages? I guess as someone who's not like in the tattoo world enough. I guess I don't know where inspiration comes for that kind of stuff. Is it just like I want to do a page of this, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I wish it was like more meaningful. Being like, oh yes, I watched the sun glisten through the windows, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna draw skulls.
Hmm.
It usually just starts off being me being like, I I like to draw like literally all the time. So sometimes I'll just be like, I'm just gonna draw a skull, and I was like, oh, what happens if I drew like 30 skulls? But when by the time I start, the skull's not gonna really look like a skull. It's gonna get so abstracted. And that's always my advice to like younger artists. I'm like, okay, don't just draw something once. Like, draw a skull and then draw me 50 skulls. And by the end, you're gonna discover something. And I think that's what I like most about drawing and art is I think no matter what, in the end, you're gonna discover something either about art or yourself or an idea. So for me, it's like, oh, if I draw 500 skulls, I'm gonna discover something by the end of this that I did not know when I started that kind of journey. Mhm.
I love how in like modern tattoo culture we're getting away from like every tattoo has to have this very specific meaning to I think it looks neat. Like sometimes tattoos are just cool, and that's okay.
That's most of my tattoos. People are like I have like a whole sleeve of people are like, oh, what's that mean? I was like, oh, nothing. It means I really like monsters, and
Yeah.
it's an ocean monster because I grew up next to the ocean, and like I have like a giant
And that's
silver
great.
surfer on my arm, and people are like, oh, so like why Silver Surfer? I'm like, because he's cool. He's my favorite Marvel.
Right. Right. Did you see the new Fantastic Four movie? They were surfing on everything, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I haven't
so
seen
cool.
it yet, but I'm very excited.
I think you'll have a good time. I mean, as someone who went in as a hater, I loved it. So, that's a whole other discussion maybe we can get into. But I guess to wrap up here, I guess I am curious. So for the zine that we did, I threw you the unfortunate list of 400 plus episode titles of I Read Comic Books and said, hey, do you want to draw something from this list? And you picked the if King of the Hill was an anime, you drew this wonderful Bobby Hill mecha. So I'm curious, are you a big fan of King of the Hill, or did you just want to draw Bobby Hill as a mecha? Where'd that come from?
I guess I've watched enough King of the Hill because it was on TV when I was a kid. But I just feel like Bobby Hill's really quotable. Like I probably once a week say like I don't know you. That's my first.
Yeah.
Like he's just incredibly quotable. He's also really realistic. Like he feels like an actual child, but not in like a dumbed down condescending way, in a very complex way.
Sure.
And I was like, well, once I read that, like that image immediately came into my mind, and I was just like, I need to draw that.
Yes, and it is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, can I get over just one stupendous art in the zine in general? We had an incredible amount of creators, and we were very happy to have you in the zine as well. But I think that just about wraps us up here then. So I guess, Claire, I want to say thank you for joining us today, for being our special guest on this episode. I hope you had a good time. Thank you to everyone out there listening and watching live on Twitch. If you're listening to this now, sorry you missed us on Twitch. Catch us at the next time we're here. Thank you, Brian, for being here today. Thank you, Danny, for proof listening. Thanks to Zander for being our editor. And I guess until next time, comics are good, and so are you.